You're listening to the Savvy Social Podcast, the show for budding entrepreneurs who want to understand the how and the why of social media marketing. I'm your host, Andrea Jones. Let's get started. Hello, what is up? Welcome to episode number 30 of the Savvy Social Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Social Report, the world's most complete social media management platform and my social media management tool of choice. My team and I absolutely love using Social Report because we finally have everything all in one place. The scheduling's there, the reporting's there, we've got social listening, and now you can even post videos directly to Instagram. Social Report was one of the first tools to allow that, and we love it because we like posting audiograms for our clients, which are audio videos that we can post usually for podcasts. So much fun. So check out Social Report. The link will be in the show notes, or you can just head straight on over to socialreport.com. Today, we are talking about how to simplify your social media scheduling process. And I've got a 6-step process that I'm going to take you through today. And it's the exact process that I use inside of the Savvy Social School. And it's what we learn how to do so that we're not having to come up with content on the spot every single time. Because honestly, the possibilities are overwhelming. And when you sit down to post something on social media and you can't think of anything to post, that's not a good feeling. And so a lot of the tips and strategies that I teach are how to eliminate that and how to take away some of that decision fatigue. So you're not sitting down to decide what to post. You actually already have everything planned out. And this is how other people make it look so easy. When you look around at maybe a competitor's account or some sort of social media influencer, they've always got a perfectly curated feed. Everything looks so easy. And the reason why is because they're using a process. So I'm going to let you inside of my process today. Now, before we dive in, I just want to remind you that you can access portions of this process in a free course called the Savvy Social Framework. So in the framework, there is a section all about content pillars. So we'll talk about that today. It kind of goes deeper into those content pillars. So you can access that. The free course is available online at onlinedrea.com/free. Okay, so how do we simplify our social media scheduling process? Well, the very first step that I want you to take is to brainstorm topics. Get a pen, old-fashioned pen and piece of paper. You can also use like a note-taking app. You can use Google Drive, like a Google Doc. I like old-fashioned pen and paper. And brainstorm out topics. Brainstorm out what you would post on social media. Now, by getting into that pattern of brainstorming, you're allowing your brain to explore all of the possibilities. There is no wrong answer here, okay? Now, I teach this in the Savvy Social School. I called it mind mapping, and I have a worksheet that goes along with it. So if you're in the school, you can definitely access that worksheet. But it essentially is just brainstorming. And I want you to do this for a solid 10 minutes. Don't skimp out on this. You want to give yourself at least 10 minutes. Honestly, if you've got more time, give yourself 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Just keep going. And again, there's no wrong answer. This is really just to see what you can come up with. What are you an expert at? What do you want to talk about on social media? If you could talk about anything at all, and keep going. The second thing I want you to do is to start grouping those brainstormed out posts into different content buckets, or what I call the pillars of content. So if you have gone through the Savvy Social Framework, you'll be familiar with the pillars of content. But the 5 pillars of content are this. You've got your promotional content, which is really just sharing out what you do, whether it be a product or a service or a podcast or a blog. You've got your educational content, which positions you as an authority in the space. You have your community content, which aligns you with those around you. You have your entertainment content, which is just fun because we all like a little bit of fun on social media. And you have your engagement content, which is the content that has the sole purpose of engaging people on social media. So, I want you to look at your brainstormed topics and group them into those content pillars. Now, if something doesn't fit perfectly, that's fine. Still add it in somewhere or maybe create another pillar. The pillars are just a guideline for you for what is possible, and it's really a good place to start. You want to make sure that you have content that fits into those 5 pillars because you don't want to have only promotional content all the time. What happens is if your social media account is one giant advertisement, people are going to start tuning it out. Think about this. We have invented ways of fast forwarding through commercials. We literally pay for things like Netflix so we don't have to be bombarded with ads and commercials and promotions and that sort of thing. So why would people on social media want the same thing? Hint, they don't. So don't do it in excess. Make sure it's just spread out quite a bit. Okay, so we have our brainstormed topics. We've split them out into different content pillars. Now I want you to take a look at either a month at a time or your whole year and select out some holidays and topical pieces of content. So this is important because we want to stay relevant. We don't want to be that brand that's tone deaf. Also, this could be a guiding light for you as you're deciding on promotions or special pieces of content you want to create throughout the month or the year. I like to do this on a monthly basis, but I do have my eye on certain times of the year where I will have special promotions. So just make a note of what these special promotions would be. You've got major holidays like Mother's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Black Friday. Those are all kind of grouped together. So you want to make sure that any holidays that's important to you and your brand, that you are acknowledging those on social media. But you also have what I call weird and unusual holidays. These are just the fun holidays. I'm thinking of something like National Pancake Day or National Give Your Dog a Hug Day. I don't know if that last one exists, but it should. And those kinds of things are really cute ways to leverage trending content. And the reason you want to plan it out is because you don't want to miss it. A really popular one, for instance, is National Donut Day. So a lot of people post content on National Donut Day. A lot of people are searching for content on National Donut Day. If it relates to you, or if you can make it relate to you, then that's a really good chance or opportunity for you to stay relevant. But not at the last minute. You're planning ahead for this. All right, so you've got your brainstorm topics. You've got an outline of what those topics look like and where they fit in the content pillars. And you've identified some holidays and some topical content that relates to your brand. So now we're moving on to step 4, which is creating a content calendar outline, I like to use a spreadsheet. I use Google Spreadsheets for this, and if you're in the Savvy Social School, I do have my spreadsheet that you can totally have. But inside the spreadsheet, I have all the dates for the whole year, and I do this a month at a time, and I've outlined what that content will look like. Now, this isn't writing out the entire post. This is an outline. Do you remember back in like middle school or high school where the teacher would assign a book report and your first step was to create an outline? It wasn't writing the whole report, but it was just kind of an idea of what the report would be, a flow, if you will, of what that report would look like. That's what we want to do with our social media posts. We want to create an outline. And a good rule of thumb is to take each of the pillars of content, so each of the content groups that you've kind of created for yourself, and give them a day. So on Mondays, maybe you're promoting the podcast. On Tuesdays, maybe you're sharing a tip of the day. On Wednesdays, maybe you're sharing an article from someone else in your community. On Thursdays, maybe you're giving a little behind the scenes, something funny. And Friday, maybe you're asking a question to prompt engagement. That could be your 5 posts for the week. So you're giving yourself an outline. And what this outline does is it allows you to guide yourself into creating the content every single week without having to guess at what you're posting. So for me, for example, when I sit down to write a client's account, I've opened up my content calendar outline and I look at it. On Monday, I have to promote something. So now I know I'm promoting something, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a sale, whatever is happening, I know I'm promoting something. So now my brain can focus on promoting that instead of focusing on deciding what to do. You also want to make sure that in your content calendar outlines, you've left room for holidays. So generally speaking, I just swap out whatever post that needs to be swapped out. I swap that out for a holiday post. So for example, if it's Monday and this Monday happens to be Martin Luther King Day, and I want to make sure that I post something on that day. So instead of doing my typical promotional content, I will just instead post something about Martin Luther King. All right, moving on to step number 5, which is to use a scheduling tool. Now, I always talk about Social Report because I love them. I'm an ambassador for them. I will always recommend their product, but there are other tools you can use as well. My favorite is just Social Report, but if you want to use something else, just Google it. And you want to use this tool because it really allows you to ensure that your content is going out to the right accounts at the right time. So instead of just having to remember to post at 12 o'clock, that post that you created, or at 12 o'clock starting from scratch writing a post, you've already got it scheduled and it's going out kind of on autopilot. This also allows you to stay consistent without having to think about it all the time. So what I recommend is sit down once a week or once a month and write out all of your social media content. I like to do this on a weekly basis because I don't like to get too far ahead of myself. I like to stay a little relevant, a little current, but I like to do this once a week. But some of my clients do it once a month, especially if they don't have content that changes that rapidly or frequently. So you could sit down on a Saturday, for instance, and take some time to write out your content for the whole month. So it's going to feel like a lot of time on that Saturday, but then you'll feel really good the rest of the month because you don't have to think about your social media content. It's already done. All right, my last tip for how to simplify your social media process. This is the last step in the process. And it's an optional step, but it's something you want to think about as you're creating your process. And that's building towards automated content. Because let's be real, there are some times where we don't feel like posting, even if we're doing it once a week or once a month. There's also a lot of content that you're going to be creating by going through this process, and you don't want to just use it once and never use it again. So the 6th step in the process is to really work towards an automated content system, or what I call the evergreen content system. This is something that I teach in the Savvy Social School, but essentially it is automating the content that you've already created so that you don't get burned out. So, for instance, if you have a new podcast episode that comes out every Monday, and every Monday you're talking about a new episode, after 30 Mondays, you're going to have 30 new podcast episodes. You should definitely be posting those again, maybe on Thursday, so that you have content going out twice a week about the podcast. But that doesn't mean you have to create a new post every time. You could just reuse the old posts. So, for example, here's kind of like an outline of how this would work. Let's say it's Monday, it's episode 30, it's going out, that's great. But then on Thursday, you're talking also about episode 1. Like, in case you missed it, for those of you who are new, here's our very first podcast episode. It's a really great way to bring back old episodes because I promise you, not everyone has listened to it yet. Some people say, oh yeah, I meant to go back and listen to that. And now you're giving them a sweet little reminder. Okay, so those are the 6 steps, or the 6 simple ways that I really suggest that you simplify your social media content process. The first one is to brainstorm out some topics so that you know exactly what you can be posting. Outline those topics into content pillars. Then you want to select some holidays and topical pieces of content to intersperse. Then you want to create a content calendar outline, use a scheduling tool to put it all together, and finally build towards an automated content system. The whole reason that I love using a system like this is because it cuts down on decision fatigue, which is something I've been hinting at this entire episode. And decision fatigue is our mental process that we go through every time we have to decide to do something. We only have so many times we can do that in a day. So by cutting that down, we're allowing ourselves space to breathe. We're allowing ourselves space for creativity without getting tired. So keep it simple, make it simple for yourself, and if you find that you're spending too much time on this, cut back on content. Now, I'll talk about how much time you should be spending on social media in our next podcast episode, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Savvy Social Podcast. For links and everything we talked about, please check out the show notes by visiting savvysocialpodcast.com. And don't be afraid to continue the conversation. I'd love to have you inside of the Facebook group. You can search for us on Facebook or simply go to savvysocialcrew.com. See you there. Bye for now.